Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, James Protin. Every week I will be sharing the experiences that have defined my journey and talking with people who have their own powerful story to tell. It's about doing better and being better in life, business, and all things in between. The visually inclined can catch us on YouTube, or you can check us out on just about every podcast platform. At Chrome Federal Credit Union, delivering more than the member expects is what we do. We believe in being there for the biggest and smallest moments. With Chrome, you aren't just a customer, you are a member. Join us today and experience the difference. Chrome, banking that shines.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We are in the third week of our summer tour, and we are here in the Southside Works at Cohort, and it's tremendous location. It's huge. It's like being in a gigantic cavern. But we're happy to be here. We love it, and we want to welcome our guest today. Is Lora McKnight. Lora is the COO of Vibrant Pittsburgh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is great. And you're a member of Cohort, right?
We are. So Vibrant was lucky enough to connect with others that were members of Cohort, and they said, you really need to get into this space and connect with the community that they're building here. And so we applied, as a small nonprofit, we applied for scholarship because we have, limited funds as a small nonprofit. Sure. And it was a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that we connected with Lynette, and we have our office spaces here at this time. And we also have office spaces at another co-working space because the work that we do in the region, we do a lot of events. And so having access to communities like this and at the other co-working space that we're in, it's just a pleasure. And I can't say enough good things about the Cohort team. They're just an amazing group. It's a wonderful feel to be here.
Yeah, it is. And the amenities are fantastic. All three of their locations in Western Pennsylvania, I mean, it's very high end, the finishes, fit and finish, everything is just really kind of off the chart. I mean, I don't know why anybody would not, as a small business or organization of any kind, wouldn't want to be here.
I agree. And just the connections that you can make when you're here, the people that I meet just earlier, talking, with others, being out Absolutely, in the common area and not getting so siloed. I think I spend a lot of time now working from home. Okay. And so coming into Cohort it's a welcome relief to see other people. I mean, I see my team, but a lot of times it's virtual because we've made that part of our culture. Mm-hmm. We've decided that it would be good for people to be able to choose if they wanted to be in office or be at home. So a lot of us are at home a lot, and I'm actually starting to come back into the office more frequently to connect with people.
Tell me a little bit about you, your order. Are you a native Pittsburgher?
I am not. I was born in Chicago and lived there for first 20 or so years of my life. Grew up working class, on the south side of Chicago, right by Midway Airport. I feel like those experiences really deeply shaped me and my work that I do in the community because the background that I come from was not necessarily one that had a lot of advantages. Okay. And so I was, of my grandparents, of my parents, I was the first to go to college and, first to have a master's degree, right? So grew up in Chicago in that working class background, granddaughter of immigrants. So I have that as well. And spent a few years in the deep, deep South in Mississippi. I moved there for my partner's job. He was moved out there and then ended up in Pittsburgh. And I've been in Pittsburgh since 2005. So this is home now. I can't imagine living anywhere else at this point. Would I have said that when I got here? No. but it's true. I think the first few years, and this is something that I see with work, and I can talk more about that later, but the first few years that a person gets to a new place, especially a place like Pittsburgh, they're crucial for figuring out your networks, for figuring out the connections that you need to make so that a place isn't just a stopping point, but it's actually a home.
Right.
And putting down roots, it's different for each person. So it took me probably 2-3 years before I was like, this is a place that I know I could spend time in.
So, you just named 3 very different places.
Oh, yes.
And, you can't connect those dots evenly because they're just dramatically different. Mm-hmm. Chicago baffles me. I've been there a lot for business. I can't even navigate Chicago. As long as I'm downtown, but it's just...
Really?
It's huge.
It's a gigantic grid. As long as you think of it as a gigantic grid, and if you make 3 rights, you're going to end up right back where you started. You'll be fine. It was so hard moving to Pittsburgh with the streets that are a bit like spaghetti.
Yeah.
And it was pre, everyone having GPS. So I was just lost all the time. But now I know my way around pretty well.
Okay. What would you say, or just like some, in your mind, obvious differences between Pittsburgh and Chicago?
So Chicago, to me, where I grew up, I think when people think of Chicago, they think of like the Magnificent Mile. They think of that immediate downtown area. Right. But for where I grew up, it was very industrial. Not a lot of trees.
Really?
Yeah. And so the thing that I think of when I, if I go back to Chicago and I come here, it's just when I hit the mountains, I'm so excited about that. To see the trees, to see the landscape as it has been. It's really integrated in Pittsburgh because it's not flat. In Chicago, they could really, do everything with every space that's available. And they do. So the trees are few and far between, at least where I grew up. And so that's a huge difference for me. It feels more impersonal in Chicago. Mm-hmm. There's so many people. There are so many things to do that you can easily, I think, become desensitized to the amount of people. The experience of being there can be overwhelming, at least for me. I am an introvert. So if you talk to an extrovert, it might be a different story. So in Pittsburgh, I do more. I'm out in the community more.
Really?
The accessibility of our arts community, the accessibility of our sports community, being able to get out and it's a smaller area, but there's so many things. And I think it's easy for people to forget that we have world-class amenities here in Pittsburgh that are incredibly accessible. And I know Pittsburghers do not like the traffic here, but it is nothing
I know.
compared to Chicago traffic. Yeah. But the thing that I did notice and, rolls into the work that I do is the difference in visible ethnic and racial diversity here in Pittsburgh. There was just so much more of that in Chicago, and that was what I was really used to. So that was a bit of I wouldn't say a shock, but it was something that I really noticed when I moved here.
Yeah, we're different. We're different on so many levels, and it's really hard to give just a blanket description of Pittsburgh to somebody who's never been here.
Yeah, how would you?
And when every time I've had somebody professionally or whatever come from out of town that's never been here before, just like you, the first thing they mention is the trees, how green it is.
Yeah.
They just can't get over how, they expect this dark, smoky, sooty, dirty city.
No, and it's the blessing of the mountains, right?
Yeah.
To have areas that you can't take trees away, right, from these areas because it's a cliff face, right? So we're not going to build there. And I absolutely love it. It's something that, every time I come back, even if I go to Ohio, for business or to visit friends, I can tell when I get back into Pennsylvania, I'm like, oh, we're back in the mountains.
Nice. So I want to talk a little bit about Vibrant Pittsburgh because what you guys do, and I realize you're a small organization, nonprofit, but you're so critically important to the fabric of this community because diversity, equity, inclusion, those things. So many large companies, in particular, those are just buzzwords. But it's so important for our community to grow, we embrace that. And not only embrace it, but we have to first understand it. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of people do.
They don't. And so the work that we do at Vibrant, there are a lot of organizations in the region that are doing work that's similar in different ways. What we really focus in on is working with organizations specifically on what we call workplace development. Okay. So sometimes when you're talking, you can hear about workforce development, which might be, skilling up individuals so that they can get the job growth that they want for their own career. But we're looking at how organizations need to shift and change so that they are future forward. Like they're looking and they understand what needs to happen for their organization and then for our region, for this place to really stay strong in terms of population. Population dictates so many things. It dictates our tax base, whether or not organizations decide to invest in our region. And I think it's easy to look around and say, oh, but there's people here. But what we can say from the numbers is that we're losing population or we're staying right steady. So other regions that are of similar size are gaining population. And we have to think about, why is that? Why are we not attracting people here to the region? And so our organization was started to address that and to think about the impact of the lack of racial and ethnic diversity here in the region. There are other types of diversity that we focus on as well, but they're less easily seen and tracked through census numbers and things like that. So we were started to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, those three separate things, and how we can help organizations become better at equity and inclusion, and thus they can bring in a diversity of talent, not just to their organization, but to our region, so that when people come here, they can see themselves here. They can do that embedding in the region that is not necessarily just about your job. It's about that feeling of, oh, I'm home, I can see the trees, right? What does home feel like? How do we help organizations be one piece of that so that when a person's at work, they feel like, I belong here. This is a place where I really belong. But then also, how does the region grow so that they can also step outside the door and say, oh, I belong here. This is home for me. And how do we make that transition happen in a short enough period of time so that people don't get disheartened and they don't leave or think, oh, I have to go somewhere else to get that kind of experience?
But equity, inclusion, belonging, I think those are words that the average person walking down the street doesn't really know how to differentiate those things.
100%. And I think even without understanding that, those different concepts very well, what I usually start with people is themselves. So I think people can think that these words are about something other than them, right? Oh, this doesn't have to do with me. This doesn't impact me directly. But even just looking at me, I think it would be very easy to say that's a white woman and make assumptions about my background, where I came from, what my family situation is, and things people don't see, that those hidden aspects of my experience are things that impact whether or not I feel I can really bring my full authentic self to the table in every situation. So people who don't know that I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, they see that I have a husband, they see that I have a child, they might make assumptions or say things in front of me, right? But so it's about me being able to be authentic. And I think it's about everyone has a backstory.
Absolutely.
Every single person has an origin story. The class that they grew up in, the income that they make, whether or not they're taking care of a parent or a small child. These are all facets of experience. We were just earlier talking about the pandemic, and just seeing the diversity of people who didn't have children during the pandemic working from home versus those that did, right? So parenthood as an aspect of diversity. And so how do we make it so that a person can really feel like whatever it is that they're bringing to the table, their race and ethnicity, whether or not they are a member of the LGBTQIA community, are they a member of the disabilities community, that they can belong, right? So they have that feeling, and belonging comes from being intentionally included, right? So thinking about, what might I not see about you when I'm just looking right at you, right? Just not making those assumptions. And then that equity piece is are we making it so that everyone has a fair shot and a fair chance to use that authenticity and to be a part of the community? It's bigger than that, but for this conversation, I would say
that's where you're spot on.
Yeah. So, there are many things that people don't see about me, they'll ask me, why are you in diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I'm like, why would I not be in this? I benefit from all of these aspects.
Why aren't we all?
Why aren't we all?
Why aren't we all?
Because we're all impacted.
Sure.
If as I age, as I have invisible disabilities that people, don't necessarily know about. They don't know, my status, in communities. All of those things can come to the forefront in my life at different times.
Sure.
I'm a caregiver of an elderly parent who moved here recently, right? That comes to the forefront in the last few years. So if we all had the ability to really, in my mind, talk about those pieces of our lives.
Sure.
And other people would hear that and have an empathetic response and an understanding that either personally or professionally, we can make room for all of those things. I think we would all benefit.
I agree 100%. And, I have my default settings are, I accept everyone exactly where they are. Okay. I don't judge anybody because I've been judged. I don't criticize anybody because I've been criticized. And when you look at where I am, I'm a 65-year-old white male. Okay, which in this country now is not a good thing to be. But people that will just categorize people, as well, they're gay, they're this, they're that, they're this, it's just profoundly unfair. And the things that you just talked about, okay, I didn't know you until you walked in the door.
Right.
I wouldn't have put any of those labels on you.
Right.
It's just like you have tattoos, right? Mm-hmm. So people make snap judgments about somebody. I have tattoos. People, nobody would know, but simply because they're not visible.
Yeah.
But when I grew up, if you had a tattoo, you were either in the Navy or in prison.
Right.
Those were the only two people.
And it has changed. Yeah.
So now everybody does. Fortune 500 CEOs, it's become an accepted thing. And I think that there's no reason for us not to accept each other for who we are. This life is not a competition.
It's not. And honestly, and even if it was a competition, what we know from the research, and I could pull it for you, I can't quote it officially right in this moment. What we know from the research, from organizations, like Harvard Business Review, is that an organization that embraces these concepts and utilizes them and works on diversity, equity, and inclusion outperforms other organizations.
Oh, absolutely.
The diversity of thought that comes from having people of different backgrounds, I can't tell you. So my team is incredibly diverse in a variety of different ways.
Okay.
And we're a small team. If I miss something because my life experience and my identities don't flag that or highlight it for me, someone else on the team will catch it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Or they'll say, this is an opportunity that you're missing. And I'm like, great. So the benefit to having so many different perspectives, generational perspectives, racial perspectives, ethnic perspectives, it's wonderful. And it takes a little bit more time, I would say, right? Yeah. To listen to everyone and really hear what they're trying to say and really hear that they have, hear the benefit that they're bringing.
Right.
But it's so worth it.
So how do you think that each person's origin story impacts their perspective or view of this subject now?
It's interesting, and it's hard to say because my parents would never have described themselves as being progressive or liberal. And so I grew up in what I would call a closed-minded household.
Sure.
Definitely the thought of if we expand the opportunities, my piece of the pie is going to get smaller.
Right.
Right? That was the way
from me.
Yeah. Going through college and like that really opened everything up for me. I think I was also primed for it. I just was always the sort of person that was like, I don't think that's true. Right? Yeah. I don't think that's true. I know there's plenty for everyone. But the classes I took in college, the people that I got to meet, those experiences were huge for me. So it's hard to say if whether or not where you come from is going to dictate it. I think it's how you respond to where you come from.
Right.
And I intentionally use the word respond instead of react. I'm a meditator, so there's a big difference, right?
There's a big difference. I meditate as well. There's a huge difference.
So really having the ability to take the time to figure out, is this a gut reaction? And could that not be accurate, what's happening inside of me right now? And what do I need to know and figure out for myself to know if this is true or not about this person, about this situation, about this group of people? So I think having that ability to inquire is incredibly important.
Oh, absolutely. Keep having an open mind and an open heart. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it is just, it's very important to be able to understand the world that you live in, because we all live in it together. We can't segregate each other out. We're in this together, literally. So in order to be able to understand that environment, the world that you live in, you've got to be able to kind of stop looking so you can see. Well,
there's a woman I used to work with. Her name is Candy Castleberry. She was
I know her.
Head of diversity at UPMC a few years ago. Now she's with Amazon. And she started an initiative called Dignity and Respect. And I absolutely love this initiative. But one of the things that she put out was like a card of like a month. And it had one challenge every day of the month for you to do in order to open up your perspective to people that might be different from you. And I remember the very first thing that was on there was look people in the eye, smile at them, and say hello. And it's just as simple as that. That people that you might be approaching on the street that are different from you, you may not look them in the eye and smile and say hello. And so just doing something like that can be an opportunity to see what's happening inside of you around what might be your own unconscious bias.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. 50 years ago, I was 15 years old, started high school. My father was a teacher at that high school. So the first day of school, he made me go to school with you. And we pulled into the parking lot, and he said, I'm going to give you one piece of advice and one piece only. This is a one-time deal. And I'm not going to say another word to you until you walk out of this building. I said, okay. He said, be everybody's friend. Mm-hmm. And I've done that every single day for 50 years. And I do that. And that's what it is. I make eye contact with people intentionally. Mm-hmm. I say hello. I smile. And even if they don't respond, that doesn't change the fact that I'm going to greet you and say hello to you.
Yes. And I think it's more important now than ever. I think that it's easy for us to all get into our own little silos, right? I work from home a lot, as I said earlier, and like, I just need to get to the grocery store. I'm just going to not look at anyone. I'm from Chicago. We are really good at that. We are really good at not making eye contact. Like, I'm too busy to make eye contact with you right now. And I have to remember that this is my life. Mm-hmm. If I'm living my life like this is my life. Right. This is how I'm experiencing every single day. Do I want to have blinders on, or do I want to be open to all of the different things that are going on around me, all of the people, all of the experiences that I could be having?
Sure.
So it's a choice.
What you're missing by not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you just focused on going to the grocery store. Well, you're missing this amazing experience of being human in the world and talking to people. Yeah.
Think about what we just said, how easy it is to start. It's as simple as a smile and a hello.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. Mm-hmm. That is all it takes. Find somebody that doesn't look like you and just say hello. Yeah. That's all it takes.
It can be that easy.
That is awesome. Well, listen, I want to continue this conversation. We can talk about this all day.
I could talk forever about this.
It's really important to me. It means a lot to me, and I love the work that you guys are doing at Vibrant Pittsburgh. Thank you for everything that you do. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's definitely get together and talk about collaboration moving forward.
I would love it. Let's do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.